A misty morning in the residential area of Greenwich. Mary Anderson stepped into her backyard at her usual time. The freezing January air stung her cheeks. As she checked the winter protection around her roses with practiced hands, she recalled the dream she had last night. In it, her husband George, who had passed away 5 years ago, said, "Something's wrong," before disappearing. "Good morning, Mary." Mrs. Johnson from next door called out while walking her golden retriever. "How's little Lily doing? I thought I heard her crying again last night." "Yes, she stayed over. But you know." Mary's voice trailed off. Her granddaughter had seemed listless lately. She'd been waking up crying more often at night. It started 2 months ago, right around the time Jennifer suddenly began canceling their weekend family dinners. Lily would always come over on holidays. They'd shop at Whole Foods, bake grandma's cookies together, learn the names of garden flowers, and read her favorite picture books. After Sunday school at First Presbyterian Church, they'd always treat themselves to hot chocolate at Starbucks Reserve. It was their tradition. What used to be time filled with smiles had increasingly become dominated by heavy silence. "I don't want to go back to Mama's." Lily had mumbled this last weekend while doing her Greenwich Country Day school homework. When Mary asked why, Lily suddenly went quiet. Jennifer had changed too, becoming almost like a different person. When Mary called, she'd cut conversations short saying, "I'm busy," and kept canceling their dinner plans. They used to meet at least once a week during the warm spring and early summer, but they'd grown distant since autumn deepened. Jennifer used to be actively involved in PTA activities and charity events, but recently she'd been avoiding public appearances. Mary noticed she'd started wearing long-sleeved clothes all the time, even in midsummer. On the surface, they seemed like the perfect family. Her husband Thomas was an executive at a major real estate company, often having business meetings at Delamar Greenwich Harbor. He played the role of the perfect husband everyone envied at social gatherings, and took the family on European vacations. They had a large new colonial-style house, 2 luxury cars in the garage, and Lily attended private school. They hosted parties on their luxurious patio every holiday, and neighbors would praise them as the ideal family. But Mary could sense it. Something was definitely going wrong beneath that perfect surface. Her experience as a former social worker told her so. For instance, Jennifer had started avoiding even mentioning her husband's name lately. Instead of saying, "Thomas," she'd say, "that person," and her body would slightly tremble at those moments. When talking on the phone, she'd lower her voice, as if afraid of being overheard. Her smartphone chimed. Thinking it was another cancellation, she checked, but this time it was from her granddaughter. "Grandma, Mama is crying." Mary quickly tried calling back. But Lily's phone was turned off. She frantically called Jennifer's cell, but as usual, it went to voicemail. The weather forecast warned of another freezing night ahead. Looking at her rose garden, Mary remembered her husband's words from the dream 5 years ago. "Our Jenny needs help," he had said in the dream. Now, she painfully understood what those words meant. Something was definitely wrong. and she could no longer pretend not to notice. Violence holds the most power in silence. She had seen this countless times as a social worker. Mary clutched her phone and made a firm decision. She would meet with Jennifer and talk. That night, Mary woke up to her smartphone vibrating. A bluish screen illuminated the darkness. Her heart leaped when she saw the name displayed. Lily. There was no answer. Instead, a voice message arrived. Her hand trembled slightly as she pressed play. Her granddaughter's voice broke the bedroom's silence. Grandma. Lily's voice was thin and shaky, as if she were hiding under a blanket. Daddy is hitting Mama, help. In the background, something shattered. The sound of a heavy glass vase hitting the floor. A woman's scream. It was Jennifer's voice. Followed by a man's angry roar, his voice distorted by alcohol. Then, sobbing. The message cut off abruptly. Mary jumped out of bed. Still in her nightgown, she threw on a coat. Her hands shook too much to fasten the buttons. She ran to the entrance and grabbed her car keys. Forgetting to put on shoes, she rushed out in her slippers. The January night air bit at her cheeks. The roads were at risk of freezing. While dialing 911, she started her BMW. The winter night air filled the car. There was no time to wait for the heater to warm up. Greenwich Police. There's domestic violence happening at my daughter's house. I got a message from my 8-year-old granddaughter. Her voice sounding strangely calm as she gave the address. Her experience as a social worker had taught her to maintain composure in emergencies. We're dispatching multiple units. Are you heading there too? Yes, I'm already on my way. Please be careful. Wait to meet up with the patrol cars. Mary hung up. The Merritt Parkway was shrouded in midnight darkness. There was no time to observe speed limits. The 15-minute drive felt like an eternity. The dashboard clock seemed to tick by cruelly slowly. Her hands gripped the steering wheel tightly. The roads were deserted. After a while, she heard police sirens approaching. Mary pulled over to the shoulder. A young officer knocked on her window. Mrs. Anderson. Let's go together. We'll lead the way. She started driving again. The red and blue lights of the patrol car cut through the freezing winter darkness. The sirens pierced the silence of the upscale neighborhood. When they arrived at the Browns' house, 2 patrol cars were already waiting. 4 officers were discussing their approach in front of the entrance. The house was dark inside. The new colonial-style mansion stood like an abandoned building. No response from the intercom, one officer reported. No response on mobile either. Requesting permission for forced entry. Minutes later, an officer arrived with specialized tools. They managed to open the door without breaking the lock. At that moment, the smell of alcohol hit Mary's nostrils. An empty whiskey bottle lay by the entrance. The living room was in shambles. Their family Christmas photo had been thrown to the floor, frame and all. An expensive vase lay shattered, its pieces reflecting the moonlight. The sofa was overturned, cushions torn apart with stuffing scattered everywhere. And on the kitchen floor, blood stains, an officer illuminated with his flashlight. Still fresh. Let's have EMTs standing by. Lily. Jenny. Mary called out. Her voice echoed hollowly. No sound came from upstairs. No one answered. The officers began searching the house in teams. Mary headed for the second-floor children's room. A teddy bear lay mangled under the bed. The Christmas present teddy bear. What Lily had treasured now had its eyes and nose torn off. The bed was cold, sheets disheveled. Checking the security camera footage, one officer said. Neighbors report hearing screams and a car leaving about an hour ago. We've contacted the security company. Another officer had begun tracking cell phone locations. Mary took out her own phone. Called Lily. Called Jennifer. But neither went through. Thomas's phone went straight to voicemail too. Outside the window, the eastern sky was beginning to lighten. As the darkness faded, a new fear gripped her heart. Where were her daughter and granddaughter now? And that man? Mrs. Anderson, an officer approached with papers in hand. Let's start the missing persons report. We need as much detail as possible. Mary nodded. But at that moment, her phone vibrated again. A message from an unknown number. The words that appeared on screen made her blood run cold. Mom, help me. I'm scared. While noting down the sender's number, Mary told the officer. It's a message from my daughter. Can you track this device? In the Greenwich Police Station conference room, Mary watched the police activity while holding a cup of cold coffee. A large whiteboard on the wall was being filled with information in chronological order. Thomas Brown, 36. Executive at Morton and Wallace Real Estate Development, Detective Carter, the lead investigator, wrote with a red marker. According to work records, left office at 6 p.m. yesterday. Last known location was a business meeting at Delamar Greenwich Harbor, whereabouts unknown after that. Security camera footage is in, a young detective pointed at the screen. 2 miles from the Brown residence, at a gas station at 2:15 a.m. Confirmed Thomas Brown's Mercedes-Benz. The footage showed a clearly intoxicated man. His expensive suit was disheveled, tie loosened. And in the passenger seat, a familiar female figure. Carol Walker, 29, another detective reported. Marketing department at Morton and Wallace. Employed there for 3 years. Direct subordinate to Thomas Brown. Mary caught her breath. She had heard rumors. Her daughter's best friend had mentioned gossip about a young female employee. But to think it would come to this. Financial transaction records, a data analyst projected new information. Over $5 million withdrawn from Brown's personal account in the past 6 months. Most appears to be covering investment losses. Then came even more shocking discoveries. Luxury apartment in Manhattan, $20,000 monthly rent. Tenant is Carol Walker. But the guarantor is Thomas Brown. The conference room fell silent. Everyone was thinking the same thing. This wasn't just domestic violence. There was something calculated here. Jennifer Brown's hospital records. A female officer opened a new file for emergency room visits in the past year. All processed as household accidents. However, the attending physician noted observations suggesting abuse. Greenwich Hospital records were displayed one after another. Then Lily's school counselor's report was shown. Changes in behavior, declining grades, and multiple concerning statements. Daddy is scary, Mama looks hurt, and so on. Testimonies from Greenwich Country Day school teachers were also coming in. An anonymous tip came to the investigation headquarters, saw them on a train to New Haven. A photo was attached. In the blurry image, Jennifer and Lily's backs were visible. Detective Carter immediately gave instructions. Check the security camera footage. Just then, Mary received another message. Mom, we're safe. But he's looking for us. Detective Carter moved immediately. Location of transmission. New Haven Station. No, wait. The signal is moving. Heading toward Hartford. Suddenly, the police station door burst open as an information officer rushed in. Important information. We've received a whistleblower report from Morton and Wallace. It appears Thomas Brown was embezzling company funds. The conference room erupted in commotion. Detective Carter gave orders in a loud voice. This is no longer just a domestic violence case. High probability of serious financial crimes. Switching to joint investigation with FBI. Top priority is ensuring Jennifer and Lily's safety. Mary stared at the message from her daughter with trembling hands. Hartford, Connecticut. A surveillance camera at the Greyhound bus terminal captured one image. A woman in a black hoodie pulled low over her face, leading a young girl by the hand. They quickly disappeared into the building. The officer watching the footage in the monitoring room grabbed his radio. Confirmed Jennifer Brown and Lily Brown. FBI Special Agent Sarah Morrison immediately gave instructions. All units maintain standby. No contact yet. High probability Thomas Brown is nearby. Avoid risks to civilians. Plainclothes officers were already positioned outside the bus terminal, monitoring the entrances while posing as morning commuters. Mary held her breath in the FBI vehicle. Where could they be heading? Mary whispered. Agent Morrison pointed at a map. There are 3 possibilities in this area. First is a church. Trinity Church is open 24 hours. Second is a motel. And third is... Just then, the radio crackled. Suspect vehicle confirmed. 2 blocks from terminal, black Mercedes-Benz. Thomas Brown himself confirmed in driver's seat. The situation changed instantly. Agent Morrison grabbed her radio. Civilian safety is top priority. The church was a 3-minute walk. But that short distance now felt like an eternity. Suddenly, a gunshot rang out from the direction of the church. In the chaos, Mary had jumped out of the car. Agent Morrison chased after her. "Mrs. Anderson, it's dangerous." But Mary's feet wouldn't stop. A small side door of the church was open. Lily's crying could be heard from inside. "Found you," Thomas's voice echoed through the sanctuary. "After losing all that money, you think I'll let you get away?" Thomas walked toward the altar with his gun raised. Behind it, Jennifer and Lily could be seen hiding in the confessional. Mary made a split-second decision and called out, "Thomas!" The man turned around. In that instant, special forces burst in from 3 directions and subdued Thomas. Thomas continued resisting until the end. "No one will believe this," he shouted as he was handcuffed. "I'm a respected businessman. I have the best lawyers." At that moment, a woman rushed into the sanctuary. It was Carol Walker. "Wait. I'll tell everything." She held out her phone with trembling hands. "This is the evidence. Conversations with Thomas, records of transactions. And this." The voice memo she played contained decisive evidence. Details of embezzlement, threats, and plans for violence. All in Thomas's own voice. "I was wrong," Carol confessed through tears. "At first, I believed his words. But that night, when I heard Lily's screams..." Thomas collapsed to his knees. "You traitor." Paramedics arrived and began examining Jennifer and Lily. "There are significant bruises," the EMT diagnosed. "We need detailed examination at the hospital right away." Mary embraced her daughter and granddaughter. "It's okay now. You were both so brave." Lily spoke in a small voice. "Grandma, I'm sorry. That night, the phone got cut off." "You did so well," Mary stroked her granddaughter's head. "Your message saved Mama." The police began processing the crime scene. Security camera footage, fingerprints, gun and ammunition. All evidence was meticulously collected. Agent Morrison approached Mary. "The hard part starts now. But we'll support you with everything we have." In the ambulance, Jennifer gripped Mary's hand. "Mom, why couldn't I talk about it sooner?" "That's not our problem," Mary squeezed her daughter's hand firmly. "He was the one who was wrong, all of it." Morning sunlight streamed through the stained glass windows into the sanctuary. In that light, a new life was beginning for the family. Thomas was put into the FBI vehicle. Carol had agreed to deal with the prosecutors, promising to cooperate in uncovering the full extent of the embezzlement case. When they arrived at Greenwich Hospital, media had already gathered. Mary quietly addressed the reporters. "There's one thing I want to tell everyone. Silence becomes an accomplice to violence. If you notice something, speak up." Connecticut Superior Court. 1 week after the unanimous guilty verdict, the judge pronounced sentence on Thomas Brown. attempted murder, aggravated assault, child abuse, corporate embezzlement. The defendant's guilt is clear in all these crimes. Particularly, violence committed in front of a young daughter can never be forgiven. 3 pieces of evidence were decisive. The audio data submitted by Carol. The abuse video Lily had recorded. And the embezzlement evidence provided by the company whistleblower. 1 month after the sentencing, spring sunlight bathed Mary's garden. "Mom, look at this," Jennifer held out a newspaper. An interview with Morton and Wallace's new CEO promising organizational reform. Carol got probation in exchange for her testimony. "They say she's going back to Ohio, to her parents." "I see," Mary answered, sitting in her garden chair. Maybe she was one of the victims too. Lily was slowly adjusting to life at her new school. She had transferred from Greenwich Country Day School to a smaller private school. There, no one knew about the Thomas Brown case. "Grandma," Lily came to show her homework. "Today, I wrote an essay called My Hero. The teacher gave me full marks." Mary teared up reading the essay. "My hero is my grandmother. She answered the phone in the middle of the night. She protected us on a scary night. And most of all, she brought back Mama's smile." Jennifer continued counseling while starting a new job. She returned part-time to the elementary school where she used to work. "The children's smiles heal me," she said. At First Presbyterian Church's support group, she had begun sharing her experience. To give hope to other women in similar situations. "There's nothing to be ashamed of. You're not alone. Asking for help is a sign of strength." The full extent of the Morton and Wallace embezzlement case continued to unfold. Over $20 million in losses. Multiple fictitious accounts. And transfers of funds overseas. Thomas's lawyers abandoned their appeal. Settlement payments remained in arrears. His luxurious mansion was set for auction. Media interest gradually faded. But this case had definitely brought about changes. Greenwich Police established a specialized DV response team. Companies strengthened their whistleblower systems. And most importantly, people's awareness began to change. Silence becomes an accomplice to violence. Mary's words resonated with many people's hearts. Life continued quietly in their new home. New roses were planted in Mary's garden. A strong variety that blooms pure white flowers. "Grandma," Lily called from the corner of the garden. "Will this rose grow bigger next year?" "Yes, I'm sure it will," Mary smiled. "Because this is the flower of hope." In the spring sunlight, 3 generations of women were quietly but surely taking their first steps into a new life. And occasionally, the gentle moonlight would tenderly embrace this new family.